Apos Audio recently released their own branded headphone cables and interconnects. Apos sent me a cable of my choice to review. Apos Audio and I have a continuing relationship. They loan me gear from time to time to review and return. I provide links to their website to purchase the gear I review from them. If you're tired of the Amazon and eBay experience, then give Apos Audio a try. I have purchased gear from them in the past and they provide excellent customer service. Now, on to these new cables. The Apos cables are called Flow and cost between $110 and $190 for the headphone cables, and their interconnects cost up to $40. I asked for the Mini XLR Flow cable. I have several headphones that use this connection type and could therefore test this Flow cable extensively. The 5-foot cable I got costs $150, and you can select from a number of terminators yourself. If you opt for the 10-foot cable, then the price jumps up to $190. Currently, you can choose between red and black colors only. Apos says that their Flow cables are made from 99.99997% pure crystal copper, which provides an, quote, unobstructed pathway for the electrical signal. They also claim that other cables use brittle, oxide-packed conductors that present obstacles to the audio signal. Apos says that their cables add, quote, richness and depth to high-end headphones. They specifically say that their cables offer deep and robust bass without boominess. They say that the mids appear lifelike, polished, and complex. The treble is supposedly airy and refined without sibilance. Apos says that you should not use stock headphone cables, even those that are bundled with headphones which cost thousands of dollars. Apos claims stock cables use materials that, quote, create issues that hinder the performance of good headphones, end quote. Each Flow cable is made by hand. This is some incredibly bold marketing. I have a lot of headphones that use Mini XLR connections. This includes the LCD2 Pre-Phasor, the LCD2 Classic, LCD2 Closed, LCD-X, LCD-XC, LCD3, LCD4Z, meze Empyrean, the ZMF Icon, Auteur, Atticus, and Oriolus. The Monolith M1570 also uses Mini XLR, but their wiring is backwards, so these cables are not interchangeable with the 1570. I compared all of these cables to the Flow. Every manufacturer has a different spin. Audeze, for example, uses some incredibly ugly cabling, even in their top-end LCD4Z. I have always found Audeze cables severely lacking. They're covered in plastic, have bare-bones aesthetics, and are shockingly insulting when you consider the price of the headphones. I have many Heart audio cables and use one for my Audeze headphones. Now, at first glance, you might mistake the Heart cable with the Flow, but if you use the Heart cable kit, then the female termination on the Heart cable is a dead giveaway. In build, both the Flow and the Heart cable are good. However, the Flow is clearly a bit thicker and seems tougher to bend. Other than that, the jackets feel similar, as do the terminations. The ZMF Auteur cable is flat and also quite ugly. Once again, the price of the headphones should warrant a better looking stock cable. The ZMF cable has the least springiness of all those I tested here. But the ZMF cable aesthetics is one of the major gripes I have with ZMF products. You simply get cheap cables bundled with their pricey headphones. The stock LCD2 Classic cable looks and feels similar to the LCD4Z cable. It's covered in plastic, transmits a lot of microphonics, and is aesthetically a slap to the face in light of the price of the headphone. The meze Empyrean stock cable is well constructed, though short and a bit stiff. However, it is leagues better in fit and feel than the Audeze and ZMF stock cables. Now, the Empyrean comes with two cables, a short one and a long one. The meze cables have a Kevlar sheath. This is rough to the touch and easily transmits the most microphonics of all the cables I tested in this video. I have a few Period cables as well. These also are thick and robust. The Period cables are thicker than the Flow, but both brands seem equally tough to bend. Let's talk about performance. Microphonics is a noticeable and annoying issue with cables. Microphonics is the noise you hear when you rub a cable against a surface, clothing, desks, a cat, etc. Basically, the cable acts like a microphone, sending the noise up the cable length into the headphones. Now, this is not electrical noise. It is noise as a result of physical manipulation. The worst in the bunch is the meze cable. Without doubt, Kevlar is hands down the last sheathing material anyone should use on a cable. Yes, it protects the cable better than the other stuff, but it adds so much stiffness and noise that it undermines whatever benefits Kevlar supposedly offers. The plastic-covered audeze cables come next in line. They are more pliable than the meze cable, but also transmit an annoying amount of microphonics. The stock ZMF flat cable is a bit better on the physical noise department, but once again, as I said previously, they're pretty ugly. The Periapt, Hart, and Apos cables transmit the least amount of microphonics. You can still hear noise from time to time depending on the surface. After all, cats do make a whole lot of noise. But out of all the cables I tested, these 3 brands have sheathing material that tends to muffle, attenuate, or mitigate much of the surface noise. Let's also discuss durability. I have never had a fault in construction with any of the stock cables in this video. While I dislike the cheap audeze look and feel, their cables have worked flawlessly for years. In fact, it is rare that a stock headphone cable is bad out of the box. I gripe about cables every once in a while, but I cannot remember the last time I made cables a huge issue in one of my reviews, except for the Blonde IEMs. Now, what about those claims by Apos Audio? This is where we will need to separate fact from fiction, reality from imagination land. If you have never bothered to look at my gear list, take a moment to do that. The links are in the description section. I have a lot of experience with cables from all sorts of manufacturers. I've spent money buying cables from third parties, not just Periapt and Hart, but also from upgrade Chinese cables you find on Amazon and eBay. I have never in all my years of listening to music found any noticeable difference switching from one cable to another, whether good or bad. Oh, sure, I read comments all the time from people who say that some expensive cable made their headphones sound more dynamic or more punchy, or that the headphones just opened up. Just as with the burn-in myth, the concept that cables make audible differences has been around for decades, but shockingly, nobody has done a blind test monitored and verified by an unbiased third party. I gave the Flow a chance. I listened to it against all these other cables. I tried it on the Empyrean, the LCD2 Classic, the LCD4Z, the ZMF Auteur, Icon, and Atticus, and I heard no differences whatsoever. The problem is that you really cannot do an actual test. To do a meaningful test, you would need 2 identical pairs of headphones. You would need to be nearly perfect in placing both headphones on your head every single time, because headphone placement does in fact affect sound. You'd have to make sure that the ear pads are brand new on both headphones. Without strict testing methodology, how can anybody claim that cables make an audible difference? Then there's the issue of simple measurements. Why is it that high-end cable companies never provide frequency graphs of their cables paired on headphones? I mean, if there is a change, it should be measurable. If it cannot be measured, then it's your imagination playing tricks on you. So, while I appreciate Apos sending me this very expensive cable to review, I cannot verify their claims that the Flow makes an audible difference. Frankly, it is not up to me to disprove them or anybody else who makes similar claims. It is up to the proponent of the claim to prove they should be believed. You don't get to make a statement and then demand people prove you wrong. After all, you cannot disprove something that has yet to be proven. My tests were entirely subjective. I am honest about that. I tried to be as open-minded as I can, and I gave the Flow a chance. I could not hear any differences between it and any of the other cables. And before anybody starts complaining that my gear is not good enough or that I have hearing loss, I want to emphasize how ridiculous such arguments are. First, I actually tested on the type of gear that high-end cables were allegedly meant for. And second, saying that somebody has bad hearing is the laziest method of asserting your claim without actually having to put in the effort. Look, I have to be honest. I have never spent $150 on a single cable. I can't imagine that I ever will. I have some very expensive gear. Actually, I have a lot of expensive gear. So I certainly have the incentive to get the best performance I can from my headphones, amps, and DACs. I mean, I paid for them, so I should get peak performance every single time. But I cannot in good conscience tell people to spend $150 on a single cable for the purpose of making audible differences in sound quality. The truth is that there is no evidence whatsoever that such claims are accurate. Yeah, plenty of people say they hear a difference. I believe that they believe, but belief is not fact that something exists. I, therefore, cannot recommend the Apos Flow or any other cable, cheap or expensive, to modify or tailor the sound of your gear. However, as we have seen, stock cables tend to be awful aesthetically and sometimes are noisy by way of microphonics. I'm looking at you, Meze Hyperion. How can Meze charge thousands of dollars but include a head-slappingly terrible cable? What were these guys thinking when they decided to cover their cable with Kevlar or whatever this material happens to be? Now, what about the audeze and ZMF cables? These guys charge an arm and a kidney for their products, but the cables they throw in are incredibly cheap. And before anybody tells me that some of these cables have 99.9999999% crystal oscillating superconductive black hole driven ion drive copper, let me emphasize a point. I do not care. Stop telling me copper and silver and unobtainium make audible differences if you don't have real tests to back it up. So, if you're going to buy cables, do it for the aesthetics. And as aesthetics go, the Flow looks and feels quite good. Is it better than the Hart and Periapt cables? No, I don't think so. I think all three of these companies, Apos, Hart, and Periapt, make excellent cables. But these are at very different price points. Hart cables are affordable. Periapt is the middle tier, and now Apos is the upper middle tier. There are some cables that cost several $100s each, but I'm not going to waste time discussing those. I do not think that Apos cables really compete with Hart. You see, even if Hart does not use super premium materials like Apos, they do make quality stuff. And the biggest selling point for Hart is their cable kit. Once you try it, you may wonder why nobody else has thought of it before. The Hart cable kit allows you to spend money on one cable and a whole host of interconnects that will guarantee compatibility with whatever amplifier you buy in the future. But with other cable companies, every time you get an amp or DAP with a different connection, you have to buy another cable or an adapter, and that's cost which mounts up fast. The point is this: I see nothing wrong with the Apos Flow cable. It functions, feels, and performs perfectly well. If you want affordable, then look to Hart. If you want endless customization, look to Periapt. If you want the highest quality materials you can get in a cable, then maybe the Flow is an option.